All right, so after the recovery, you're going to go into the evacuation process or the vacuum process. Now, that vacuum process, the whole point of it is to get every last little bit of anything that is inside the AC system out. Um, if there's moisture, if there's refrigerant left, anything that's in there, get it out. Put it in the vacuum and suck it out of that system. Um, Now, with that being said, um, the AC system evacuation may not remove any moisture at all, none at all. And that's usually a test question, is that the evacuation won't remove all the moisture out of the system or may not remove any moisture out of the system. The only way to actually get moisture out of the system is to run it through desiccant. Now that desiccant, you can find that inside your accumulator or your receiver dryer. So basically every single time an AC system ever gets opened up, anytime you replace a compressor, anytime you recover the freon out of a system, period, for any reason, you're going to replace the receiver dryer and or accumulator every time. It's just one of those things, unless the customer specifically says, I do not want that replaced, and even then you say, well, you probably should, because it's the only efficient way to get all the moisture out of the system is to replace that. So now we're moving into charging systems, making sure you charge the right amount. Undercharging and overcharging, both of them have drastic failure possibilities. Undercharging, poor cooling, poor lubricant circulation, compressor overheating, all three of which basically say the AC doesn't work, you have a potential of blowing up your compressor. If you overcharge a system, high operating pressures and temperatures, poor performance, possible component damage, and system shutdown. So once again, it isn't going to perform properly. You're not going to have cold air blowing out. And last but not least, you're probably going to blow up your compressor. So you never want to undercharge and or overcharge. Neither of them are good on the system. So basically, OEM is required to put on a stamp somewhere. And they can hide these things, I mean, in some of the weirdest places, so you'll never find them. Sometimes you're lucky and, you'll find it just right inside the cab, right up by, you know, wherever, by the window somewhere. But a lot of the time they'll also try to hide them on you. But it'll give you the exact amount of how many pounds of what type of refrigerant to install. So on this one right here, you'll notice that it says R134A, 1.05 to 1.16 pounds of R134A. That's exactly what you're going to put in, no less, no more. So, moving on, basically final notes for charging a system. Sometimes after vehicles have left the assembly plant as a result of field operational issues, the manufacturer may decide to increase or reduce the refrigerant charge. Now, obviously, they're not going to go around and re-stamp every single one of these. So you got to keep up to date on service bulletins, stuff like that. Can Equip is going to send out a service bulletin or whatever type of tractor you're working on for that unit, saying, hey, this is the new charge that you're going to be putting in, this exact make, model, year, etc. All right. So after recovery, after recycle, all that fun stuff, you determine the AC system had a low charge. What should you do? Okay, so AC wasn't working, you recovered it, you did not recover, let's say the system was supposed to hold 5 pounds of freon and you only recovered half a pound of freon. What do? Obviously, it didn't have 5 pounds in it. Can you just top it off? Can you just add another 4.5 pounds of freon? What's the solution here? Well, the big thing is obviously you had a leak, right? You lost 4.5 pounds of freon, or even half a pound of freon. You lost half a pound of freon. You need to go find out why. So you need to do leak tests. Now, I mean, these suckers can be itty bitty, tiny little leaks, and you got to go find them. So there's multiple ways to run leak tests. So in this picture, this gentleman right here, he's actually running a leak tester. It's a tool, and it can actually sniff out, and also known as a sniffer, it can sniff out freon leakage. Now the new ones of these, I mean, they're ridiculous. I think they can pick up like 15 thousandth of a gram of freon leak per year. So they can get itty bitty, tiny, tiny, tiny leaks with these things. Um, then there's also dye leak tests, so you can charge the systems with dye. You put dye inside of them, and then you walk around with a flashlight looking for where it's leaking. And then finally, you can charge them with CO2, run them up to 300 pounds, whatever their high operating pressure is, and you can check them at full pressure as well. Um, yeah, so, oh, sorry, I said 15 thousandths. It's 15.15 ounces per year are what the new sniffers can sniff out. So they're effective, right? They can pretty well sniff out just about any leak you got. Here's a dye kit, so you would hook this into either the high or low side, depending on what fitting you had, preferably low side. High side potentially may have a high charge in it. But you put it in on the low side, you inject the dye into the system, and it'll go glow under a light. All right, so flushing the system. So desiccant filters out of your accumulators, your receiver dryers, they can blow up. When they blow up, they fill the entire AC system with desiccant and these little black balls in here. Another one, your compressor can blow up, send metal throughout the entire system. Um, Either way, it's not good. So here's a big variance. Some OEMs are going to tell you every single time a compressor locks up, you're going to flush the system. Some OEMs are going to say never flush a system because potentially the material you're using to flush the system, whether it be alcohol or whatever, that can get stuck in the system and therefore contaminate when you recharge the system. They would rather see you replace everything. Um, it just depends on your OEM. Uh, so, as far as the test goes, of course, they're going to say that a major concern is that flush solvent may remain in the system and dilute the oil, but that's not necessarily going to be congruent with every single OEM out there. But for the test, you don't want to flush it because it may get stuck in the system and contaminate the refrigerant. All right, recovery, recycling, and recharge machine maintenance. To assure proper operation, it is necessary to perform regular maintenance on this equipment. Now, basically, whenever you buy the equipment, it's going to come with usually whoever you bought it from, they have a service guide that they're going to send out and go through it. I know there's a guy down in Wichita. He's the one who services our machines. We take it down to him. And he usually does it once a year or something like that. But we got a full list of inspections and stuff that we do all the time. Anytime it's broken, we definitely take it down to him. But even if it doesn't come with that, it still has to be inspected and maintained. We're talking about replacing filters and all kinds of fun stuff. There you go, right there, replacing your filter dryer. So there's a filter dryer on the machine itself, just like on the system. Uh, so this is not talking about the machine, I guess. We're already on to the next slide. Field coupled hoses. Okay, so a field coupled hose is a pretty standard hose for an AC system. Um, Not a lot of problems. Usually your biggest problems is when the rubber itself is rubbing on a frame rail, something like that. But places to really check when you do have a leak. So you did a recover on it, you found you're a half pound short, is right around here, right around this crimping. Sometimes they'll leak out, especially on a new hose. You just replaced a hose and you still have a leak. Get in here real good with your sniffer right at those pinch points and check them for leakage. check up in here. If you had an O-ring that popped out or got pinched or cut or something like that, it's going to leak out right here. Um, Incorrect tube and hose fit. So if for some reason somebody installed the wrong hose, uh, anything like that. R12 system service and retrofitting. So anytime you have an R12 system, you can technically update it to an R134 system, but it's got to go through the right retrofit. It's got to go through the right operations to get it up to date. Now, one of the main things you have to do is you're going to replace your receiver dryer, obviously. You have to replace that. Some systems you're going to replace a compressor, but usually not. The other big change that you have to make is going to be your fittings. Once again, your fitting ports where you hook up your gauges, they have to match the right type of refrigerant. So if you're going to update from an R12 to an R134A, then first of all, you got to be certified, so you got to pass your test that we're studying for, right? Secondly, you have to change those fittings out and you have to change that dryer out. Let's see. Technician training is required to work with 1234YF, just like R12, just like R134. If you're going to get paid, you got to have it. Material safety data sheets. If you have 1234YF, R12, R22, R134A, it doesn't matter. Any material in a shop, MSDS has all the safety information on it, has all the contamination information on it, has what to do if you drink it for some reason, all of that. Always refer to your MSDS, and obviously know that if you ever need safety, especially if it ever asks for where you're going to find safety on the test, you know where to go to. Um, Once again, 1234. It's the newer one, and it is flammable. You need to know that it's flammable. That's going to be in your MSDS as well. That also means that it can ignite under certain circumstances. Once again, you'll notice that's highlighted. That's probably why it's in here again, because MACS themselves are saying, hey, guess what? It's going to be on the test. So expect it coming. Performance spec for evaporators used with 1234 systems. Because of its flammability and the possibility of refrigerant buildup in the passenger area from a leaking evaporator, manufacturers are being very careful in their system design. The industry has agreed to use special stronger evaporators in the 1234YF systems. These units provide increased protection against bursting and are more resistant to pinhole leakage. Sounds like a good plan if it's flammable, right? Here, 1234YF in its white with red striped container. Vehicle labels required by law tell you exactly how much, what type of oil, all of that. There's an example of vehicle label. Fittings, once again, by law, the fittings or the service ports have to match the right refrigerant. Identifying the 1234YF, obviously an identification machine would be nice every time. And there's a picture of an identification machine. Leak testing machines. Here's your sniffers that we talked about earlier. Dyes, dye kits, injection of dye, checking it out with a flashlight. Certification level for your recovery machine. It's got to have it. If it doesn't have it, you're not going to be able to even register your machine. So don't buy a secondhand market without knowing. Here's the machine right there. Basically, these machines do everything for you. They absolutely everything. They beep at you when they're done or when you're supposed to check them. You guys can go through this through your modules tab if you want to see exactly what they do, but there's not a lot of questions on how the machine works, and we're going to be covering it hands-on. So, all refrigerant must be handled with EPA-approved equipment, must be registered, right? Local, state, all that fun stuff. We're about out of time. Always remember to replace O-rings and seals with new pieces. Reusing old parts usually causes leaks. And that's it. We're out of time.